County Assembly Speaker.
I have resumed my duties, whether I'll do them in an empty office or just within the premise of the Assembly. My duties and responsibilities as the Speaker of Homa Bay will be undertaken.
But today, things went south in her office once again as a known goon stormed into her office, breaking the plastic chairs and table she bought on Tuesday. And as though that was not enough, they sprayed the entire office with a pesticide, making the office uninhabitable. Her attempts to retrieve her computer and documents from the Assembly Clerk's office hit a dead end when she found the office locked on Tuesday. The MCAs opposed to her administration have stood their ground that she won't get back to her office despite her calls for dialogue with the group that has issues with her style of administration.
You cannot talk of reconciliation when there are several of us living in hiding because they can be arrested anytime.
Article 182 of Kenya's Constitution 2010 states that if a vacancy occurs in the office of county governor and that of deputy county governor, or if the deputy county governor is unable to act, the Speaker of the County Assembly shall act as county governor. Should the Supreme Court uphold nullification of Homa Bay County Governor Cyprian Awiti's election, then she will be the governor for 60 days until elections are held. Could this be the hidden force behind her troubles? Kevin Ogutu, KTN News from the county of Homa Bay. This was the status of Homa Bay County Assembly Speaker Elizabeth Ayo's office when she reported to work Tuesday following a court directive.
I do apologize for that. To matters health now, where the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers called off an intended strike after the National Hospital Insurance Fund, NHIF, agreed to review its accreditation procedures, which hindered clinicians from offering services to NHIF-registered patients. In a statement released Thursday evening, the union said it had reached an agreement with NHIF to provide a list of its gazetted members and institutions managed by clinical officers for review. The union issued a 14-day ultimatum to NHIF on the 18th of November over regulations it said required clinical officers to seek approval from medical officers before billing patients for services within their purview. Doctors in the country have raised their concern over the issue. Let's now speak to Dr. Oma Oluga, who is the Secretary General and Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union. He joins us by way of phone. Many thanks for joining us on News Center this morning. What are the reservations of medical officers over what clinical officers have been asking?
First and foremost, I want to congratulate my brothers from the clinical officers for reaching this agreement and even for calling off their intended strike.
Right.
However, I think it has to be stated very clearly, one, that NHIF is not the employer of clinical officers, and I think the direction was not right in terms of, I think they were trying to blackmail NHIF into this kind of agreement. Secondly, I think we have to be very certain as a country the direction that we want to take as far as quality provision of health services is concerned. We have had cases in which commercial entities are using groups to an end that may be very dangerous. And I want to mention two. One is the issue of the pharmaceuticals and the importation of pharmaceutical products. Already we are dealing with 30% fake drugs in this country. And most of the time when these medicines or these interventions do not work, it is the doctors that are blamed when the importation is on fake medicines, because the law just was changed to allow for people who do not have the capacity to scrutinize the quality to do this job. Now, the issue of the clinical officers may actually get us to that direction. And I have mentioned this time and again, even to doctors, that if you do not have the capacity to interpret a test, you do not have any business ordering for it. Because we are subjecting Kenyans to higher costs of care, but more importantly, we are also subjecting Kenyans to harm, especially for radiation. And I know the push by clinical officers was informed by the push for them to be able to order for CT scans and MRIs, which are very expensive tests, but also because these things are very high radiation, especially CT scans, and we're already seeing a lot of cancer cases. So I think these are things that need to be taken. So the issue of clinical officers should have been dealt with at the level of regulatory authorities, not NHIF.
I mean, in their defense, clinical officers said they're forced to seek approval from medical officers before billing patients for services that are within their purview. That is your argument.
No, so if I am a medical doctor myself, I am practicing. There are even tests I cannot order for because I cannot interpret them. So if you have ordered for a CT scan and then it brings results, what are you going to do with those results?
Right.
You're going to still send this patient to a specialist. The specialist is still going to order for a test because they did not know the quality and the conditions under which that test was done. So that the patients are going to pay double, and then they're going to be exposed to radiation twice. That means that we may see increase in cancer cases. I think that is something that should be dealt with at the level of regulatory authorities, the Clinical Officers Council, the Medical Practitioner Dentist Board,
Right.
the Radiation Protection Act should have been the ones to deal with this issue. But I think the NHIF has been twisted and blackmailed into submission, and I think this is very bad for quality provision of services. And I think Kenyans need to be wary of the kind of laws that we are passing, or some agreements that may hinder even timely provision of care. Because, for example, if I am in Meru and I have this CT scan that has already been done, and the CT scan, for example, shows that I have a bleed in my head, what are you going to do with that? You're still going to send it to someone who is specialized to do it. So if you're suspecting that this person may have a bleed in the head, then why don't you just send them to a place where the test can be done and there's intervention already, so that we do not delay care to Kenyans and we do not expose them to unnecessary radiation. So this is something that we are taking very seriously as a union, and we may be seeking court intervention on the aspect of quality, and also to that we hinder harm to Kenyans, because this is very dangerous direction that we are taking as a country.
All right, now you've mentioned the dangers of it, the potential of commercialization, the potential for fraud, the potential for wrong diagnosis. What then is the immediate impact of this deal as we move towards universal healthcare? Yeah,
well, universal healthcare does not mean that anyone, anywhere can purport to do something that they are not qualified to do. Even myself, as a doctor, there are things that I am not qualified to do. For example, an orthopedic surgeon is not qualified to operate on the eye of a child. That requires a different specialty. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. So this applies to even doctors, and I'm not restricting myself to clinical officers, for example. Medical officer interns, for example, do not order for CT scans. Why? Because they have no business intervening and interpreting those results. So then why would we even take this even lower? I mean, and I'm not saying that they are not trained to do some specific things, but I think that we have to be very wary as a country. We should not go this greed for commerce to be able to just claim for money from NHIF at the expense of the health of the whole country. I think this is not right.
All right. I mean, clinical officers have complained of being sidelined in the rollout towards universal healthcare. They say medical officers rather have got most of the attention. Is it just a matter of sibling rivalry, seeing KMPDU opposing?
I don't think that there's sibling rivalry, and I think clinical officers have played a very critical role, and I think they still do play a critical role. They actually play a bigger role than doctors, and that is true. But at the level of primary healthcare, at many facilities, these facilities at level 1, 2, 3 are mainly manned by clinical officers, and I think we really do appreciate the service that they give to Kenyans. Most of them are my friends. But I think also at some point we should not keep quiet just because we want to protect friendship. I think at some point we have to say what is quality to Kenya. Some of these things have happened in the U.S. 5 years ago, 14 years ago, they have been pushed by other people to order for like this kind of thing. Kenya is not the first country where this kind of things are happening. And I think there are already international standards from the International Radiation Association and the National Radiation Authority on the exposure of radiation and the specific qualifications of professionals who are able to order for tests and who are able to intervene on this issue. So I think Kenya is going the wrong direction on this. This is not sibling rivalry. This is an advisory to the public that we are going the wrong direction, and we are going to be seeking court intervention to ensure that the correct quality of care is given to Kenyans.
All right. It's just the other day that clinical officers complained to the government that their credentials, as high as they are not being remunerated properly with their job groups. So the question would be, what is the big deal with having clinical officers assist with some of these simple procedures when we've had, players in the health sector complain of being understaffed in hospitals?
As far as remuneration is concerned, I'm a unionist, and I have always been supporting my brother Gibore and his troops, the clinical officers. I think we have been very clear about some of the things that SRC can do. I think for me, any worker anywhere should be compensated adequately. That I do not have a problem with. I think what I have a problem with is when Kenyans are going to be exposed to unnecessary. Actually, it's going to increase fraud, it's going to increase the cost of care, it's going to reduce quality. So I think we cannot pretend as a country. For us as a union, and for me specifically, I don't think there's anything to protect. But we speak the language of truth. So the Kenyans should either listen to the truth or go the direction that they are already taking, where people, there are entities. Let me tell you what's happening. There are specific hospitals and clinics that are small that see an opportunity to keep ordering for tests and charge NHIF. That is the bone of contention. It's not about clinical officers. This was not about clinical officers. This was about individual interests that are riding on the banner of clinical officers. And I think the Ministry of Health needs to come out to give direction here. Because I think NHIF was bullied into this kind of activity.
Well, and perhaps just to, as we wind up, let's make it clear, because you've mentioned the possibility of this turning to fraud. How can this be manipulated?
It can be manipulated because we already are even grappling with the issue of, the reason why they mentioned that you need to write your registration number when you're ordering for tests is not specifically to lock out other cadres. It's to ensure that the person ordering for that test has the capability to interpret and utilize the results of that test.
All right.
That's the reason. It's not because some other cadre wanted to order for tests. For example, I have absolutely no business ordering for MRI of the heart, because what am I going to do with it after? I should send this patient to a cardiologist, and then the cardiologist will order for the test, because when they find the result, then they can intervene and help the patient.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Because if I order for it, then I may order for the wrong test, I may order for it to be done the wrong way. When the patient finally gets to the right person, then it will be repeated. That is extra radiation, that is extra cost. I think these things are in black and white. I don't think that the country should be grappling to understand simple things like this.
All right. Many thanks for speaking to us. This is the Secretary General and Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, Dr. Omar Oluga. They're responding to the calling off of a strike in public hospitals by clinical officers who had given NHIF a 14-day ultimatum to reverse existing hindrances for the accreditation of clinical officers. Well, let's stay with the health sector. And senators raised concerns over disparity in the actual money the national government is expected to pay to companies supplying medical equipment services to county governments. Appearing before senators, Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki said the initial contract indicated 3.6 billion shillings. But according to documents tabled before senators, the figure had fluctuated between 4.5 billion shillings to 6.1 billion shillings. The figure currently stands at 9.4 billion shillings. After a back and forth debate between the senators, Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, who was chairing the meeting on Tuesday, ordered the ministry to submit proper documents showing the date, cost and status of all the medical equipment delivered to all the 47 counties. Listen in to part of that conversation.